Welcome to today's podcast. In today's podcast on rebuilding ourselves after abuse, I want to talk about the dark days, and you're going to have dark days. Once you've realised you've been abused and start to realise the damage it's done to you, it'll be easier to cope with the dark days. And I call them the dark days because they're just horrible days you'll have sometimes, and you're just going to have them, and you're going to feel like crap. The best way to get through the dark days are to just accept it. Okay, you're having a really bad Tuesday. It's all coming up. You don't feel good. You've got a lot of anxiety. You've had some bad dreams. You've had some flashbacks. Something has triggered the abuse in you, and you're feeling terrible. So if you can, retreat. If you can take the day off from work, if you can cancel all your appointments, just retreat. This is not giving into it. This is just letting you have some healing space. The dark days will come less and less the more you work on your stuff, the more you release all the stuff, the trauma and everything from the abuse, the more help you get and support of getting over it. The dark days will become less, but you're still going to have them. And that's what I want you to understand. It's not a failure. It's just like a phasing out time. In the dark day, you just retreat. Don't answer the mobile. Check out, watch Netflix, read a book, go in the garden, go to bed, sleep, whatever you need to do. Try not to get drunk or take too many drugs and things on that day. I know you'll want to do it because you want the pain to go away, but they won't really make the pain go away, actually. Unfortunately, we don't have a pill for abuse. If we had, I could have made $1 million, couldn't I? Just take 2 of these and you'll feel fine. But it's not like that. So you just have to kind of ride it and then it'll pass. I find I do things like have a bath, a long shower. I eat food I want to. If I want to have ice cream or bad food like chocolate, too much chocolate, I have that. Just the things you need to do to get through. I will actually burn my nice incense, and then I play music I want to play. I do things that bring me some peace, but I still feel like horrible inside. And these are the days when it's coming up before it comes out. Sometimes you can't get it out without feeling your way through it, and I'm really sorry about that, but that's actually the reality. Sometimes you'll feel your way through it. Those old feelings will come up, the terrible fear and the anger and the anxiety and the shakiness that you'll have, which is from the abuse, of course. On the dark days, don't be with people who are negative or going to give you a hard time, because you won't cope and you could snap a little bit and be kind of cranky. Just keep away from them. If you're a person who have to take care of a family, that's a takeaway night, or just to pull something out the freezer. You need to minimize what your demands are on that day, because on an internal level it's very demanding. The dark days internally are really demanding. I found them really hard. Usually just have 1 or 1 and a bit days. If it gets too long and you need help, go to your doctor or go to your therapist or counsellor. Don't let it go on for too long. But if you see it like a process of, like, I don't know, it sounds awful, but you're having like a big abuse vomit and letting some of it all out, you'll have a shorter one and you actually just ride it. At first I didn't know what it was. Just have these crashing days. I feel awful. Wake up in the middle of the night, and then it would go on and on. Then once I realised I was clearing out some old abuse and my body was releasing stuff, and I found it easier because I was just like, oh, okay, I know what's happening and now I know what to do. It's just like, take care of Wendy today, day. And I used to do that. They do get less. The more you release, the more you let it go, the more you process it and come to terms with it, the more you heal, the less of these days you'll have. But occasionally I still will have one. I'll just have one that comes out and I recognise it, and I'm like, okay, we're doing one of those days today. And then I use all my modalities to make me feel a little bit better, and I just ride it. It usually peaks too. You'll find you'll be having it and then it'll peak and get really bad. And if you're suffering on that day from severe anxiety, take something. If you've got meds, that's the day to probably use them. I'm not talking about taking too much stuff. I'm talking about just easing it off. Take enough to ease it off. If you use natural products, this is the day to be having your valerian or your St. John's wort or passion flower tea, whatever the things are that make it easier for you to get through that little high bit, because there's usually a little high bit there. Sometimes the high bit, I notice, comes in the middle of the night, and that can be pretty uncomfortable. If you don't want to wake up your partner, you can just get up and go to the other room and maybe distract yourself by playing around on the internet or watching something, and make yourself some calming tea, some chamomile, put some lavender oil on yourself, whatever you think you can do. It will pass, and it is a clean out. And once you see the dark days as a clean out, you might feel better about it. You're not going backwards, you're cleaning out stuff, you're releasing stuff, and you're feeling what you wouldn't let yourself feel before. And unfortunately, sometimes you can't mentally do it. You have to emotionally go through it. To get rid of it, you need to feel it again, to get it out of your system, to release it. It's kind of like grief. If you have lost someone, you kind of have to cry. You will have a time where you will be crying, and that's like your release. And this is similar. You kind of are crying, in a sense. The dark days, the old you crying because you were hurting, and at the time you couldn't deal with it, and now you just have to experience it so you can release it. I wrote about this in my book, The Dark Days, because at first I didn't really know what they were. I just have them quite often episodic, and I never knew when I would get them. Sometimes you can actually get other things with it, so be aware of it. You could get a migraine on that day, or upset stomach, or your back will be worse, or you'll have neck pain. There can be other physical things that happen on a dark day, and you just need to recognize that, this is the abuse coming out. This is all the emotions and all the terror and trauma and the damage releasing from me. And that's why I'm having this, because our body will actually sometimes do it as well. So in those cases, you just make sure you do some work around that. If you have your migraine tablets, you take those. If you have a stomach ache, you take something to settle your stomach, or you get a hot water bottle for your back and put maybe some anti-inflammatory on your back. Or if you've got a sore neck, you get your massage machine out. You just can still do those things to help the day be better. I tended just to switch out to the world that day. I just gave myself the 8 hours in the day if I was home during that day. If I had to go to work, I did it, and then when I came home, I did all the placatey things I needed to do, like the beautiful bath and just going to another space and just being quiet that day and playing myself some beautiful music. It will be a sad day, really, too. The dark day is always a sad day, and I think that's the sadness and the loneliness that we had. But now we've grown up, maybe we're in a relationship or with people we can be with. You can also ring people on a dark day who are close friends, someone you feel who's healing and supportive to you. You don't have to do it alone anymore. You did it alone before, whether you were a child or in a relationship which wasn't going so well and you were on your own there, crying in the corner in the lounge at 3 o'clock. We've all done that one in those relationships. So don't feel you have to be actually alone, but don't be with negative people. That's what I'm trying to say. So if you need time out from people, do it. But if you want to ring your best friend or your sister, do that too, because that's what it's healing for you, because you had no one before and now you're reaching out and you do have someone to support you. On a positive note, the dark days get less and less. The more we work through our stuff, the more we deal with it and release it, and that's a good thing. And eventually you actually not have very many. I rarely have them now. Sometimes I'll be triggered by something I see on television or event around me or some person I see, but they seem to be shorter and they don't feel so intense. That's probably the best word for it. They're not as intense as they were before. They were really dark. Like if you're listening to this, you know exactly. It feels like you've got this big cloud pressing on your head. It's just like being in a big dark place, but you do come out of it. And while you're in the dark place, you nurture yourself, all right? You take care of yourself. You've been through lots. You've really suffered, and you've suffered physically and emotionally and mentally and psychologically. You have really suffered, and you've suffered like other people haven't suffered. And I want you to always keep that in mind. When you've been through abuse, you tend to not realize there's people who didn't do this and go through this. And they had a really lovely childhood and wonderful marriages or relationships. and they haven't been in abusive situations like we have, and you can lose sight of that. It's easier for them. They're like normal, and even within their normal life, they've probably got some bits that aren't working so well. But you don't be hard about yourself. You don't be hard about yourself about feeling unstable or messy or a little crazy sometimes. You survived this. You got through. Okay, we got a bit of damage, but we're working our way through that, and we're strong souls. We're strong people because we actually are still alive. A lot of people who suffer from severe abuse actually commit suicide. They also manifest illness so they can check out earlier. Some of them get mental illness, so they're not quite here with us. They get particularly bad mental illness and often kinds of dementia, so they just check out. And if you're listening to this, you're still here. You've done okay. We're still standing up. We might be a bit wobbly some days, but we're still doing okay. So you just keep positive about your healing, and don't let those people who abused us win. I have a really strong survivor attitude that you wrecked my life before, but you won't wreck the rest of my life, and I will just fix it up. I'm not that happy about having to fix up the mess, and I've said some really foul and rude things to these people in my head, but I am healing. So don't let the dark days get you down. Just get through them, and then there will be more sunshine in the days to come. So I'm sending you lots of love and lots of healing, and I'm hoping that, like me, we can get through this and over this. And that's how we really win from abuse, and that's what surviving means. Surviving means that we are no longer a victim to it. So I'm sending you love and light.